On March 6, 1857, the Supreme Court ruled against Dred Scott in a 7-2 decision that fills over 200 pages in the United States reports. The decision contains opinions from all 9 justices, but the opinion of the court, the majority opinion, has always been the focus of the controversy. 7 justices formed the majority and joined an opinion written by Chief Justice Roger Taney. Taney began with a statement of what he saw as the core issue in the case: whether or not black people could possess federal U.S. citizenship under the Constitution. Oh, Jesus. The question is simple. This is, can a Negro whose ancestors were imported into this country and sold as slaves become a member of the political community formed and brought into existence by the Constitution of the United States, and as such become entitled to all the rights and privileges and immunities guaranteed by the instrument of the citizen? The answer, the court ruled that they could not. It held that black people could not be American citizens, and therefore a lawsuit to which they were a party could never qualify for the diversity of citizenship. The Article 3 of the United States Constitution requires for an American federal court to be able to exercise jurisdiction over a case. Taney based his holding on a set of historical notions and assertions and provided little legal reasoning for the court's conclusions. His primary rationale and his claims that black African slaves and their descendants were never intended to be part of the American social and political landscape. We think that the black peoples are not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the constitutions, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and accrues and secures to citizens of the United States. On the contrary, they were at the time of America's founding considered as subordinate and inferior classes of beings who had been subjugated by the dominant race, and whether emancipated or not, yet remained subject to their authority, and had no rights or privileges but such of those who held the power and the government might choose to grant them. All right, now we have to look at that in the context of our history and our experience of how we've been treated in our relationship to Europeans, all right, not just in the United States, but worldwide, as Europeans considering themselves the superior race as opposed to inferior races, okay? And, you know, when we look at this, the reality is that the position of power in the world, and, you know, the acquisition of wealth and resources and technologies and knowledge literally makes them, you know, put them in a superior position because of those advantages. The advantages of advanced technology, the advantages of you know, knowledge, all right, and all of these things lend to a real superiority as far as abilities and capabilities. Okay, this is you know, legitimate arguments when we look at it from, you know, the face. Not saying that, you know, in essence that, you know, we're all not created equal, right, under God, all right, but we make of ourselves what we will, all right, and just as other men did, as Marcus Garvey says, as Africans, all right, and the ascendants of Africans, all right, because Africans in Africa are ascending too, okay? We are growing, we are rising intellectually, spiritually, and morally and otherwise, okay? That's one of the reasons why, you know, you're all Pan-Africanists point to legitimate leadership, all right, not the leadership that have been imposed on our people from without. All right, because a lot of our leaders are not acting in the best interests of their people. All right, because our people are our greatest assets. And how we invest in our people is, through the resources that we have to educate and to uplift our people's, not just intellectually, through education, but spiritually and morally as well. And these are the reasons why we fight and call for reparations, because we feel that a great injustice has been perpetrated against our ancestors, and those issues need to be redressed. Coming from the standpoint of religion, we're not coming from the standpoint of any particular religious ideology or whatever, because all different religions are represented in Africa. All right. Our concern is social justice. Our concern is reparations for the wrongs that have been perpetrated against us. And, we come back to that, time and time again, that we have a God-given right, a natural right as human beings, all right, to enjoy all of the benefits that this life has to offer. And what we're saying is that, like, the situations of Africa in the diaspora and Africa on the continent of Africa, we want to even change the name of the continent, because General Scipio Africanus is one of the conquerors of that continent. We could call it anything else but Africa, but we determine what to call ourselves, right? And getting back to the issue of self-defense and, the fact that we were not considered citizens of the United States. All right, as descendants of the slaves that lived in the United States, what I want to point to is the black codes and slave codes that existed, that, the primary colonial powers, right? And most regions required all slave away from their plantations or outside the cities they resided in to have passes signed by their masters. And most restricted the marriage rights of enslaved people, ostensibly to prevent them from trying to change masters or marry into families of other plantation owners. All right. Slaves, dependent portions of North America, varying degrees of legal authority, back patrols by plantation owners and other free whites to ensure the enslaved people were not free to move about at night, and to generally enforce restrictions on slaves. The same thing is applicable today with the police state that we see in existence right now, with stop and frisk and all the type of invasions that we see when we try to congregate. If young black men are hanging out on a corner or something like that, the cops will come along and break them up. That's just like the controls that were put in place after the end of slavery. You know what I'm saying? And even during slavery. All right.